Okay, so in this video, we're going to look at a business scenario and try to figure out what the present value of it would be and whether or not you ought to do it. So, here's our problem. Suppose you could open a small business which you expect to produce cash outflows of $10,000 per year for the first 2 years, followed by positive cash flows of $30,000 per year for the next 2 years. Further, suppose that you will sell the business for $50,000 at the end of 4 years. If your required rate of return on investment is 20%, what is the present value of the future cash flows associated with this business opportunity? If you assume that the business would cost $7,000 today to start, what is the net present value of this business opportunity? And should you pursue it? So the first step for this problem is to do a timeline. So let's go ahead and do that. So notice that we have an amount per year for the first 2 years, followed by an amount per year for the next 2 years. So we're going to have a 4-year timeline. Okay, so in this case, we are expecting to produce cash outflows of $10,000 per year for the first 2 years. So we're going to have negative $10,000 for year 1, negative $10,000 for year 2, followed by positive cash flows of $30,000 per year for the next 2 years. So we're going to have positive $30,000 here and positive $30,000 here. Now, further suppose you will sell the business for $50,000 at the end of 4 years. So that's going to be an additional $50,000 here in year 4. And it stipulates that the required rate of return on investment is 20%. So we're going to have 20% per year as our required rate of return or required rate of investment. And the question that we have is, what is the present value of this? So in this case, what we can do is we can find the present value of each of these cash flows. So to find the present value, if you've been watching the videos, present value is equal to future value divided by 1 plus the rate of return raised to the number of periods. So for this first calculation, what we would have is a future value of negative 10,000, and we would divide it by 1 plus the required rate of return raised to the n. Okay, so let's go ahead and try that using the formula. So negative 10,000, and then we would have 1 plus, in this case our rate of return is 20%, so 0.20 raised to the 1. Okay, so what we get if we work that out, and I'll pause to let you try it. What you should have gotten was negative $8,333.33. All right. Now, it's worth noting that we could also solve this using our time value of money solver. So if we tried that with our time value of money solver, then what we would have would be N, I, PV, FV, payment, and type. So our familiar inputs. So in this case, if I'm looking at this one cash flow here, then N would be 1, because I'm bringing it back 1 period. I, since we're looking for this in percentage format, would be 20. Present value is what we're trying to find. Future value would be negative $10,000. Payment would be for an annuity, which we don't have. We just have 1 period. We don't have any annuity going on. So you can put in a 0 for the payment. And since we don't have an annuity, the type doesn't actually matter. So if you try this, then go ahead and solve this out and see what you get. And I'll wait here for a moment. Okay, so if you solve that out, what you got for the present value was a positive $8,333.33. Now, as I've noted before, the rules for using your calculator, its time value money solver, is any cash flow going out needs to be negative, any cash flow coming in needs to be positive, and then you have to interpret the sign on the answer with a grain of salt. So in this case, notice that although we have a negative future value here, which is the way it should be, this positive 8,333.33 is a little bit misleading, because when we did it the long way using our actual formula, we got a negative. A negative future value produced a negative present value. So in this case, you have to be a little bit mindful of that, because it really isn't a positive cash flow. What it is actually negative. And the way you can remember that is if I plugged in a negative future value, I'd have gotten a negative present value when I'm using this formula here. So this really is actually a negative value. However, we could repeat this calculation for year 2, in which case we would change n to 2 and resolve for present value, because the future value is still the negative 10,000, and see what we would get for year 2. So this is for year 1, and now I recommend that you try that for year 2 and see what you get for the present value for year 2. So pause the video and try that. Okay, so if you paused the video and tried that, and kept in mind the fact that a negative future value will give you a negative present value, then what you will have here will be a negative $6,944.44. So that would be the amount that you would have for year 2. Now for year 3, I have a positive 30,000. So what you would do is go back to that time value money solver. N would now be 3. The future value would actually now be a positive 30,000, and then you would solve for the present value for that calculation. So go ahead and try that, and I'll pause here for a moment so that you can pause the video and see what you get. Alright, so if you went ahead and did that, then the number that you got from your calculator was actually a negative present value. But if I put in a positive future value, I would get a positive present value. So it turns out the number isn't really negative, even though your time value money solver and your calculator tried to tell you that it was. So what you actually have is a positive $17,361.11. And the way to remember that, again, is if I have a positive future value and I'm finding present value, then I should get a positive present value. And we do. Alright, so that brings us to the 4th period here. So for this 4th year, notice that I have $30,000 from the sort of the profit from this enterprise, but then we also sold the business for $50,000. So one way we could do this would be to find the present value of the $30,000 and then also find the present value of the $50,000, both of which we would need to find the value as of time 0, so we need to bring them back 4 periods. However, this $30,000 and $50,000 are both at the end of year 4. So $1 in year 4 is worth $1 in year 4, which means I can add the $30,000 and the $50,000 to get $80,000 at the end of year 4. And now what you want to do is find the present value of $80,000 that you're bringing back 4 periods with the annual rate of 20%. So if you go back to your time value money solver, N will be 4 now. The future value will be a positive 80,000, and you will still use the 20% interest, and we'll solve for the present value. So at this point, you should pause the video and try that and see what you get. Okay, so if you pause the video and work that out, what you should have gotten was a number which, once again, your calculator tried to tell you was negative. But again, if I have a positive future value, then I should get a positive present value. So in this case, what we have here is a positive $38,580.25. So that is the present value of this $80,000. So to find the overall present value of this entire enterprise, we would need to add up all of these present values, remembering that these first 2 are in fact negative. So at this point, I'll give you a moment to pause the video and see what you get. Okay, so if you added those up correctly, what you should have gotten was $40,663.59. So that is the overall present value of this business opportunity. So we've answered the first question, which is the present value of the future cash flows associated with the business opportunity. The next question says, if you assume the business would cost $7,000 today to start, what is the net present value of this business opportunity? To find net present value, what you do is you take the present value of future cash flows and then you subtract off today's cost, and that should give you your net present value. Okay? So if we think this through, remember that the value of any asset or investment is the present value of all expected future cash flows. So these are the expected future cash flows. This represents the present value of the expected future cash flows. So this represents the value of the business. So this present value of expected future cash flows is the value of the business. And if I look at today's cost, then let's think about what we want this net present value to be. So if it's worth $40,663.59, then if I only had to pay, say, $10,000 to do it, I'd be paying less than it's worth. That would be good. That would also correspond to a positive net present value because we would have $40,663.59 less a cost of $10,000, and that would give us a very positive net present value, and that would be a good thing because that would mean we were paying less than it's worth. And paying less than something is worth is a good thing. Now, on the other hand, if this is what it's worth, and today's cost was perhaps $50,000, then if I took the value of these future cash flows, the present value, $40,663.59, and I subtracted off $50,000, it would be costing me more than it's worth, and we don't want to do business opportunities that cost me more than it's worth. So in that case, our net present value would be negative, and that would be bad. So positive net present value means that we are able to buy an opportunity for less than it is worth, which is good. A negative net present value means we're having to pay more than something is worth, which would obviously be bad. So in this case, let's go ahead and work that out to find out how we're doing. So we have $40,663.59. That is the present value of the future cash flows. And we're told that the business would cost $7,000 today to start. So that's going to be today's cost, $7,000. So if I subtract those off, and I'll give you a moment to pause the video to try that. Then in that case, our net present value is $33,663.59, and it is definitely positive. So our net present value is positive, and we think the business is worth over $40,000. We're only having to pay $7,000 to do it. So in this case, this is a really good thing. We have a positive net present value. This is really good. So that leads to this last question. Should you pursue it? And if I have a positive net present value, meaning that I am paying less than I think it is worth, then of course the answer to that is yes, we should do this. Now, one of the questions you might have then is, well, what would be the maximum amount we'd be willing to pay? Well, if I think this is worth $40,663.59, the most I'd be willing to pay would be exactly what it's worth. So the most I'd be willing to pay would be $40,663.59, which would actually give me a net present value of 0. Now, the question you might have in the back of your mind right now is, well, wait a minute, doesn't that mean I'm not making any money? And the answer is no, you actually would be making money at that point. Because what we've done when we found the present value of the cash flows here is we discounted at our required rate of 20% per year. So what that means then is if I paid as much as $40,663.59, I would make my 20% per year. Now, obviously, if I can pay less than the $40,000, I'm going to make even more than 20%, which is going to make me a happy camper. This is good. But if somebody wanted me to pay $50,000, I won't actually make my 20%, which is why I'd be upset with the idea, which is why I would not want to do it if the net present value actually worked out to a negative number. Make sure you contemplate how this works out, and remember that a positive net present value is good because we're able to get something for less than it is worth to us. A negative net present value means that it is bad because we are actually paying more than we think something is worth to us. and a net present value of 0 means we're getting exactly the rate of return that we required, so we're paying exactly what we think something is worth to us. Make sure you think those through a little bit and try some other problems and see how you do.